Hey guys, what's up? Tyler here, back with another quick recap video here for you guys. Should be a whole lot quicker than that last one. Just a solo episode here today, but I just wanted to kind of recap my Western Nebraska hunting so far. So at this point, I've been on two hunts in Western Nebraska. So far I've been on 2 hunts here in Western Nebraska, and my goal for both of those has been to chase spot and stalk mule deer. Originally grew up hunting in Colorado, so of course I'm gonna wander towards the mule deer hunting. And quite frankly, I have absolutely struck out. I've seen a lot of does, I've seen some bucks, but they've always been on like low in the farmland slash just the private, really. So it's been difficult. It's been very, very difficult. I've been putting in tons of miles. Like I said, I've been on 2 trips, both about 3 days. In both of those trips, I covered about 30 miles total in that time frame. So about 10 miles a day. So I've been covering a lot of ground. Pardon me, just have a few notes. I don't know if I found the right properties. I've just kind of gone to 2 at this point. I'm not going to share that with you. It's not hard to kind of pinpoint the public land here in Nebraska. But with that said, it's been difficult. It's been very, very difficult. Luckily, on one of those trips, I had a buddy that kind of helped. He pulled me under his wings and kind of showed me some new country, and it was a really good time. We saw a lot of animals, a lot of whitetails, saw a couple smaller bucks, nothing big, but quite frankly, we saw a lot of antelope. So one of my big kind of take homes from this trip, and a tip I would give to any of you guys, if you're coming to Nebraska for spot and stalk mule deer, I'd pick up an antelope tag if you can, because our hunt was all about mule deer until we saw the antelope. We didn't see a lot. We probably saw, I would say maybe 30 the whole time. But we had stalks. We had a lot of stalks, and we got to within, I would say, 150 to 100 yards was pretty dang easy. It was very easy to get within that 100-yard range on these antelope. There's a lot of contour. There's a lot of contour to be able to get a stalking on these antelope, which is very different from my antelope experience from, say, like Wyoming. So it was easy to get within that 100 yards, but to cut from that 100 yards to my effective range was extremely difficult. That was where things kind of got interesting. So my next best thing was be able to shoot far. Be willing to take those far shots with your bow. My effective range for this year was about that 60 to 70 yard range. 60 I felt great, 70 just really depend on the conditions. I was practicing at the range at about 80 yards frequently on a daily basis, but this is my first year back into archery, so I just really wasn't willing to take that far of a shot at an antelope. So I'm going to be putting in a ton of range time this year to really extend my range. To hopefully next year I'm willing to make those far shots count if I need to. So my next thing, since antelope is kind of where these hunts went to, didn't see a lot of mule deer, saw more antelope than anything. So I'm kind of gonna really just focus on antelope here. So I don't know a lot about antelope or antelope behavior, so that is one thing that I'm going to really research here this winter. I think there's a lot of opportunity at some really nice antelope here in Nebraska. It is a draw hunt for rifle and muzzleloader, but it's over the counter for archery. So there are some pockets where there are some nice quality antelope. I have a few areas in mind where I think I can get on those kind of quality Pope and Young antelope, but I don't know anything about their behavior. So I'm going to do a lot of research into rut behavior and flagging and decoying and all that kind of stuff. So again, another little tidbit, at least for me, again, this isn't necessarily for you guys, this is all for me. This is kind of just my personal diary of these hunts and tidbits for me to learn for next year or for future years. So bring a decoy, cover tons and tons of country, and be really willing to keep the pressure on these antelope. There's one group of antelope that my buddy and we actually spotted them from the road, which rarely ever happens, but we spotted them from the road. It was one hot doe with 3 bucks, and we were able to get on them pretty quickly. And I don't know if we bumped the doe or if the bucks were just chasing the doe, but we chased this group for about, I would say an easy 2 miles, and we were on them pretty much the whole time. Again, we covered the country. It's open. There's a lot of contour, so we were able to get within 100 yards pretty dang easily on this group. My buddy almost came to full draw at about 70 yards on one of those bucks in that group, but we just weren't able to make it happen. But even after they kind of bumped a little bit with that hot doe, we were able to get right back on them very, very quickly. So with that group, so my buddy was within about 70 yards. I was able to get within that 100 to 120 yard range at least 3 times on the same group of antelope. So keeping that pressure really helped for us. So whether that's the right thing, I don't know. If we had a decoy, I think that situation could have been very, very different. So at least for next year, I know I'll have a decoy or 2. I'm not sure water is going to be really an option, at least in this area, because there were water wells everywhere. Windmills with water wells, pretty much, I would say probably about a mile to mile and a half apart. They were everywhere, and there's just a ton of water. So I don't think water would be the way. I think spot and stock is the way you got to do it, and I definitely think it's doable with how much contour is in this land out there. So another little thing just to always remember in the back of your mind, antelope are super easy to glass at first light and last light as the sun's coming up and as that sun is setting. As long as that sun is to your back, those antelope just glow in that light. So just something to remember. The next thing, the whole trips really came down to being able to close from that 100, 120 yards down to that effective range. So anything you can do to cover that last little bit of distance effectively, whether you're shooting that distance or you're just able to crawl, you're comfortable crawling, dropping your pack, whatever you need to do. But I think one thing that I'm going to do for next year is have like some sort of gilling suit or a 3D suit. I don't think I'm going to do like a full body suit, but I think I'm definitely going to do some sort of head net, some 3D head net with an upper body. I think that would be huge. If you could slip that on and just cover that last 20 to 30 yards, I think you'd really greatly increase your odds of success. So something to think about. Again, just this is my personal reflections on this hunt. Let's see here. Lastly, again, this is just a personal reference. Don't sit on anthills. We sat down for lunch and did some glassing, and I sat right in an anthill and got chewed to crap by red ants. So it happens. At least I didn't sit on a rattlesnake. We didn't see any rattlesnakes out there. They are out there. My buddies ran into quite a few over the years. We did run into other hunters that said they have ran into rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes scared the crap out of me. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind. There's not a great cell service in some of these areas. So if you're hunting solo, be aware rattlesnakes are out in Western Nebraska. Have some sort of GPS, satellite phone, communicator in the circumstance that you possibly get bit. Yeah, because snakes scare the crap out of me. Not gonna lie there. Lastly, what else can I add here? So I did have an opportunity on a buck my last night, on an antelope buck, that I kind of totally screwed the pooch on. I had a buck at 30 yards. and I wasn't able to capitalize on that opportunity. Long story short, we were leaving the unit, and off a few ridges over, we did spot a buck, an antelope buck. We thought he was solo. It turns out he was solo. And we had about 20, maybe 30 minutes of legal light left. So we busted it up the hill to right where we thought he was gonna be, and he wasn't there. Again, it was the last night. We didn't have a whole lot to lose, and so I just kind of keep creeping forward to, there's this kind of a low hollow bottom, and figured he's either there or he's gone. And sure enough, I kept creeping forward, and he was in that low bottom, but he spotted me right as I spotted him. And granted, I was looking through him just like through the tips of the grass, but he still saw me. He was looking right through the grass and saw me. And by the time I ducked down, told my buddy behind me kind of what was going on, while I was trying to figure out how we could try to close the distance on this buck, I creeped back up over the grass, and he was gone. And I know I don't know a lot about antelope behavior. I do know they're a very curious animal. And I could tell he hadn't gone up over the ridge or over the other side of the ridge. So I figured either he was hiding in enough of the contour, or he was coming towards us. And I know, like I said, they're curious animals. So I thought maybe he was coming in. And that's kind of where I screwed up. When we first spotted him, he was 150 yards away, didn't have an arrow knocked. As soon as I had the suspicion that he was coming in, by the fact that he was gone, I should have knocked an arrow, because at this point I took 3 steps forward to just look at that bottom where he was. And as soon as I did that, next thing I know, 30 yards away, up pops antelope head and chest, just right up over the hill, looking right at me. And I wasn't ready. I didn't have an arrow knocked, and by the time I had an arrow knocked and ready to go, he, of course, the gig was up. He spooked down the hill. I chased him a little bit, and by the time I had him at 50 yards, by the time I moved my sight, came to full draw, settled that pin, he was gone. It was very interesting in this situation, though. He kept spooking, and I kept chasing him down. There was probably a few minutes left of legal shooting light, and I was literally sprinting through the sagebrush chasing after him. Every time he would run, I would run. Every time he'd stop, I'd stop, or at least slow down. And surprisingly enough, it worked. It was a very interesting situation. I'm not sure I would highly advise you do that in all situations, but it worked. We kind of did that whole sequence 3 or 4 different times. He'd run, I'd run. He'd stop, I'd stop. I'd slow down and just kind of creep closer, and then he'd run again and I'd run. But again, I wouldn't advise it, but it almost worked for me. He skylined himself up against the ridge. And again, my inexperience of archery hunting over the last few years. Again, I've been in grad school, gave up archery hunting for about 4 years, so I'm just back into it. I'm willing to admit defeat. I definitely screwed up. I've learned a ton this year so far, just in these few little mishaps, and this last little situation, again, I screwed up big time, because it was perfect. He stopped. He was at 60 yards on top of the ridge, completely silhouetted. It would have been perfect. And where I screwed up is I threw up my rangefinder. I ranged him 60 yards, moved my slider to 60, and for whatever reason, I didn't trust my range. There was no reason to not trust my range, but I didn't trust it. I ranged him again, dead nuts, 60 yards. As I'm coming to full draw, he spooks. Now, again, hindsight's always 20/20. Would I have had a shot? Who knows? But he was skylined. You know, there was no other range that I could have possibly have gotten on this buck. I should have just accepted the fact that he was at 60, came to full draw, and let her fly. But hey, live and learn, you know. I've learned a ton this year. Had some awesome experiences out in Western Nebraska. I'm hoping to get out there again. I'm not sure when. I do have a few days off in early December. Just gonna debate whether or not I take a muzzleloader or go with my bow. It really just kind of depends on how the hunt goes. Depends what the weather's doing. If there's a bunch of snow, I don't think I'm gonna make it. This area is still about 6 hours for me, so it's quite the drive. So we'll kind of see. We'll see what I decide on doing. I got a lot more hunting left this year. Here in about a week, heading back to Colorado. My brother has a buck tag out of my parents' ranch, and I'll have a bull tag. So we've killed some big bulls out there. Killed a lot of big bucks too. So I'm really looking forward to getting back out there. It's the ranch hunt, you know. It's very different than any hunt that I typically do throughout the year. Mom's good cooking. It's just I don't know, it's a hunt I always look forward to. It's not a hunt that happens as much as it should at this point in my life, but I'm really, really looking forward to it. Get to see my brother, get to see my mom, get to see my dad. It's gonna be a very good time. Could not be more excited for this trip. My gun's hitting good. There's been a lot of bucks out there right now. A lot of 150, 160 deer. Rumor has it there's a 32-inch buck hanging around out there. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. I'm excited. I am planning on doing a semi-live series hunt for the ranch hunt this year, as well as some other little videos from while I'm out there. So not sure if this is something you guys like. Again, this is more for my reference for next year, you know, live and learn, my personal diaries of the fall. But if this is something you guys like, let me know down in the comments below. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button. It'd be greatly appreciated. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.